Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
This week's episode is a continuation of the Groundwaters Live is Resilient episode volume 1 that we featured a few weeks back. I'm very happy to be able to feature these works. My co-editor from Groundwaters Publishing, Pat Edwards, and I put out an anthology every year. And generally, to debut this anthology, we're able to have a live performance with many of our contributors where they can read their own works. Today's episode will feature some of those folks. We're not able to get everyone in, but I hope you enjoy. There's a great variety of different kinds of poetry and prose by many different authors. So thank you for listening. Our first reader is Demetri Liontos.
I'm Demetri Liontos, and I've written a piece called Captain's Got a New Dolly. It's based on a true story. A sloping sun announced the end of another hot summer day in Westmount. Susan Winslow felt its ebbing warmth as she rolled up the awning of her pet shop on Green Avenue, not far from the city limits of Montreal, a few blocks east. Like most shopkeepers on this busy street, Mrs. Winslow looked forward to closing time, to walk up the leafy streets to her modest two-story home in a quieter part of town. Her trusty assistant Janet had finished feeding the animals and filling the water bowls for the night. It had been a typical day, with few sales and many questions, a routine that Mrs. Winslow actually enjoyed all these 27 years. She especially liked meeting new customers and took time to make them feel at ease among the motley stock of colorful birds, exotic snakes, turtles, hamsters, rabbits, and the usual irresistible collection of puppies and kittens. As she walked toward the front door to flip on the closed sign, it swung open and in walked a short, dark-haired man carrying a briefcase. Summer was not Gilles Dumont's favorite season. He hated schlepping his briefcase and its many forms from store to store along the hot streets of the city. Still, it was a cut above his former used car sales job, he told himself, and in a month the fall weather would make his days less sweaty. And working now in the Quebec government's Department de Conformité, Compliance Department, was a really good start to a new career as a civil servant. Fair pay, super bennies, unfireable. Bonjour, he said, and almost collided with a plump middle-aged woman. Good day, mate, came a shocking squawk a few feet away. Good afternoon. Don't mind his nibs, he greets everyone who comes in, said Mrs. Winslow. We're just about to close, but you're welcome to have a look-see for a few minutes. Actually, madame, I am here on government business, said Dumont officiously, while straightening his rumpled jacket. I need to... Good day, mate. Captain's got a new dolly, squawked the bird, visibly upsetting the man. Sorry about that, sir. His nibs is naughty, but just friendly. You must be joking, said Mrs. Winslow, half thinking this was some kind of Gallic humor that escaped her. Dumont ran his fingers through his greasy black hair, straightened up, and narrowing his eyes, slowly said, I can assure you, madame, that we take language matters very seriously in the Département de Conformité. What? I can't believe it. You're actually fining my pirate for speaking English? No, madame, I am fining your parrot for not speaking French, said Dumont gravely. He proceeded to fill out the citation, for $175 in triplicate. She threw up her hands in disbelief, and Dumont stuffed the citation in one of them. Bonne soirée, madame, he said, gathering up his papers and beating a hasty retreat. Good day, mate. Captain's got a new dolly. Captain's got a new dolly. Epilogue. This event actually happened. Fictitious names and dialogue were used to create the parallel of what actually happened. Winslow's pet shop, Susan Winslow proprietor, appealed the citation and won her case. She did have to change her store sign to conform to Bill 150, as did other local businesses. Perhaps Mrs. Winslow also had the last laugh, as she thought to send the story to the Gazette, Montreal's English-language newspaper, and, in today's parlance, it went viral. Gilles Dumont, embarrassing his superiors, was undoubtedly reprimanded for interpreting already draconian rules a bit too severely. And what of his nibs? Well, Captain's got a new dolly.
Our next reader is Evelyn Searle Hess.
My COVID trifurcation. And I want to stop for a minute with that strange word that some people are not acquainted with. Trifurcate is just three branch. Just think of a deer's antler. My COVID trifurcation, early spring 2020. A pandemic lockdown is not an entirely negative thing for an introvert, especially if she lives in the woods. Out my window, I see no neighbors' homes, no roads or cars. Douglas firs flaunt their baby green new tips. Big leaf maples' floozy flowers seduce bees to their sweet nectar. Whirlwinds of spring azure butterflies dance into the extravagant show of dogwood damsels. Their flowers not flowers at all, but saucer-shaped. Sorry, I just lost my... Their flowers not flowers at all, but saucer-sized groupings of glowing, leathery white bracts surrounding greenish knob of mite-sized true flowers. Early spring in these western Oregon hills is its normal, glorious self. Until I get into my car. If I venture into the twilight zone of town, empty streets and parking lots inspire visions of headlines screaming abduction and half-page photos of spaceships, aliens, and shell-shocked townspeople. Governor Brown has ordered all non-essential businesses closed to avoid the spread of highly infectious novel coronavirus, and the citizenry is doing its best to cooperate. At the grocery or post office, masked customers look over their shoulders. For aliens? Carefully respecting anti-social distances, they stare intently as they walk, looking straight ahead, not touching door handles, unwashed carts, not meeting a fellow errand runner's eyes. My breath comes shorter, heart beats faster. With my red cowboy handkerchief mask pulled tight over my nose and mouth, I fantasize preparing to stick up the grocery checker and suppress a nervous giggle as inappropriate now as it would be at a memorial service. Inside, I'm hit once again by a wave of gratitude for these people who come to work each day, dealing with a constant flow of strangers each minute, each hour. Grocery checkers, ag workers, food service folks, medical personnel, delivery people, emergency teams. May you all stay healthy and rest in knowledge of our appreciation as you prop the rest of us up. I finish my chores as quickly as possible with no idle chit-chat, no relaxing over a hot mocha, no swinging by a friend's house en route, no touching my face, the counters, doors, another human, No touching. Untouched babies die or survive, both physically and mentally impaired. Skin is an organ, registering temperature change, a breeze, a caress. Is that why these masked people stare straight ahead? Deprive one sense to deprive another. Touch means connection. We shake hands, kiss cheeks, hug. We hug in joy, we hug in grief. Touch shows we are not alone. NBA teams with the greatest on-court touching early in the season, high fives, chest bumps, back slaps, have the best end-season success. Touching is a team-building exercise. But now I am a no-nonsense machine, cold-blooded, no-blooded, a robot, and uncommonly efficient. I return home exhausted from the effort, efficiently scrub my hands, and fall into my husband's hug. Let my tension go, cling. Then I check the calendar. If I feel no symptoms in 5 days, I can relax a little. If I'm still fine in 2 weeks, I can head out again. Meanwhile, I text and email and Zoom. If I see a neighbor as I walk up and down our country road, I make sure to wave. I do what I can to keep in touch. Touch. Did we know before how much we needed it? If the first branch of my trifurcation is awe, gratitude, and joy, all food for the spirit, and the second is nervous anxiety and aching loss, growing from the amygdala, the third comes from the cerebrum. This novel coronavirus experience spotlights so many problems that have long been swept into dark corners, giving us the opportunity to examine and do something better. Though our local hospitals responded remarkably well, our medical system in general seemed inefficient, unprepared, disorganized, and negligently disparate. Can we truly see that now? Will we insist that we provide opportunities for fair, accessible health care for everyone? The light also shines on racial and gender inequities, allowed far too long. Native American reservations where access to running water may be inadequate or non-existent, the people often living in dwellings with extended families, are hotspots for the virus. Hand washing is declared essential to decrease viral transmission, as is social distancing. How can that happen with limited running water and group living? Because of zoning laws, redlining, and other forms of housing discrimination, African Americans have an outsized likelihood to be food insecure and have diabetes, respiratory problems, or other underlying health conditions, making them more susceptible to complications from the virus. On the East Coast, the Black population holds a majority of jobs in mass transit, deemed essential work. With 13% of the population, African Americans comprise 30% of COVID victims. On the West Coast, the Latinx population is hardest hit. Most agricultural workers are Latinx, many of whom are undocumented. This work is essential for the rest of us to eat. Ag workers often cannot practice social distancing, rarely have protective gear, usually are underpaid, and when undocumented, do not qualify for health care or other social services. Oughtn't essential workers, those crucial for our day-to-day needs, be able to expect livable wages and access to health care? Workers at the meatpacking plant in Sioux Falls, where more than 640 contracted the novel coronavirus, were mostly immigrants coming from Africa, East Asia, and Latin America. The work is demanding and exhausting in close quarters and with minimal, if any, protective gear. Other meatpacking plants have similar descriptions. Women hold the majority of jobs now deemed essential: grocery store checkers, fast food workers, but particularly in healthcare. Though increasing numbers of women are surgeons or other physicians, of the nearly 6 million healthcare jobs, paying less than $30,000 a year, 83% are held by women, and half of the workers are non-white. Women make up 73% of healthcare workers who have been infected by the novel coronavirus. Too many of these same people, the poor people of color, are also getting the first brunt of climate chaos. And many are essential workers, growing, processing, delivering our food, or otherwise filling roles our lives depend on. I am personally galled by the fact that my mostly delightful, mildly inconvenienced life is dependent on gross inequality. I was not royal born. I do not want to live in a hierarchy. Can we begin to understand that all people deserve a living wage, respect, healthful living conditions, reliable health care? Can we do something about it? But besides showing what we must change, these days of COVID-19 isolation also show what is possible. People from perpetually smoggy areas can suddenly breathe good air. We're heading for a record drop in annual global greenhouse emissions. We hear stories of profiteers and armed protesters, but those make the news because they are the outliers. What I see is people accepting sacrifices, people looking out for each other, and change deemed necessary for the common good. I see dedication, kindness, cooperation. I feel like the universe is giving us a good shaking and a not-so-subtle lesson that we can, if we will, do with less, cooperate more, care for our fellow earthlings better, and together actually bring about a just and sustainable future. Right now, we must do what's necessary for this COVID moment, but we can understand what is, envision the world we want, and build on today's lessons for essential change. And we must maintain the health of heart and soul with time and attention in this amazing world where we garden, walk, look out the window. Oregon iris carpets the ground. Dogwood's outrageous flowers promise birds summer fruits. Wild strawberries, cheery flowers, and breaking buds on the scrambling dewberry promise mine. The world I walk in seems just as it should be, and I am touched.
Our next reader is Stephanie Sanchez-DeLong.
To be an old growth again. Mama used to say our souls come from the trees. She taught every time we cut a tree down, the soul of the tree is freed from its warm wooden encasement and is bound into a mortal human body to enjoy life's short journey. Mama warned of a time when all the trees will have been cut down and all the seeds will be barren or lost. She said when a great winter will begin. All those mortal bodies will no longer journey, and the land will become still as the night. Mama told me not to be afraid. She reassured me that in this great winter, our souls will be freed from our short mortal lives, and we shall be regenerated back into the trees we once were. She reminded me that, like all winters, our time to heal and rest will be upon us, a time that she always looked to fondly, singing and dancing as she said, "Oh, how I long for the rejuvenation of being an old growth, to have roots which shoot deep within the earth, grasping at the land which provides stability, to be an old growth and have a strong trunk, never too tired to stand erect, to have branches with long outstretched leaves, waving hello to the sun and sky above. Oh, how I long to be an old growth again, to feel the cool drops of rain accumulate in my leafy palms, as I stand and watch the sands of time drift in the wind, to be in a place of calm and solitude, where all the stress of this short life can be healed." Mama foretold all this would happen, so in the great spring we would all reemerge from the trees, so the time of growth and understanding was possible. She said that this reemergence would start slowly at first, only to speed up until we all will make our journey through this mortal life, all to learn the lessons only a mortal life can teach. Mama spoke with wisdom when she insisted that these times of rejuvenation were just as important as our journey's lessons. She was right that getting back to our roots will bring us the joy we need to aspire towards the sun. She provided me a knowledge that helps me every day, and now, as I have journeyed some in this mortal life, I dance with her and sing her song. And so I breathe. I am grateful for my father, for without him I could not breathe. My mother has provided so much for me, with all her care and nourishment, but my father has provided life, despite himself, and so I breathe. My mother has given immense amounts of love and patience to nurture the soul within me and out of me, but my father gave me a name, which makes me question the meaning of the world, and so I breathe. My mother has toiled herself barren and broke her back, only to ensure my survival. Yet my father's blood is what courses through my veins, causing my heart to beat and my lungs to contract, and so I breathe. There is no question that mother is divine, but I am grateful for my father, for without him I could not breathe. Journey of the soul. I took a journey of the soul to find out I don't have one. I'm nothing but a force of nature, pent up in a big bag of skin and bones, kicking rocks around. Now, when that force of nature gets too weak to keep on kicking, it will leave this sack of nothing to reemerge pent up again in the seeds of grass. Those seeds will grow to be fed upon and transform into a quickening cow that will also grow. But that force of nature that I am won't stop there. It continues its journey from grass to calf to human again, only return back again to repeat the cycle eternally. I took a journey of the soul to find out I don't have one, for I'm not grass, calf, or human. I'm much more. I'm a force of nature with no beginning and no end, for I am life and there is no death.
Our next reader is Evelyn Searle Hess.
Old growth. Old age is not for sissies, they say. I heartily agree. But tell me, what age is? Can you imagine the courage and determination it takes for little ones to learn to stand on two legs, to make meaning out of strange babbling around them, to learn to speak the words themselves? Infants and toddlers amaze me. And do you remember facing your first schoolroom full of big and little strangers? Maybe first grade, maybe kindergarten. And then there was junior high. I don't know about you, but a king's ransom couldn't pay me to face that again. Definitely not for sissies. I could continue through the ages, keeping your head up through the fraught teen years, the terrors of a first job, of dating, school exams, love traumas, parenthood. Living is not for sissies. Nevertheless, it's natural to be frustrated at yet another enigma when things seem to go backward. Activities that once seemed simply part of who you were become a struggle. I'm thinking of the creaking hips and knees of the one-time runner, food burning on the stove of the family chef, words gone AWOL from the pen or mouth of the writer or speaker. Then there are the vision problems, and the hearing problems, and the memory problems. No wonder seniors get depressed. But hey, we survived algebra in our first broken heart, didn't we? We survived parenting and bad bosses and so much more. So how do we approach this new challenge? After a good long time of refusing to set the calendar of my life forward, 3 ideas help me formulate a plan. First, I'm firmly of the "it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness" school. Second is a powerfully influential lesson from my father when he was contemplating his end-stage bone cancer. For the previous decade or so, he had been caring for my mother, long confined to bed or wheelchair. It shook him that he would be vacating that role. "I thought I'd at least be able to see Amy through," he said. "Are you worried about her?" I asked. "No," he said. "It doesn't do any good to worry." Whew, doesn't do any good. How odd that in all my years of free-floating anxiety, I'd never considered the lack of result for all that effort. My plan's third component is to insist I be realistic, not wistful or fearful. That partly necessitates practicing flexibility. If it rains in my picnic, I'll make alternative plans. And if I can't run comfortably, I'll walk. Plus, it's partly acceptance. The rain will fall. I can't wish it away. And we can't get any younger. But would we really want to? Junior high reprise, anyone? So, starting with number 1, how can I light a candle? Find the good in the situation at hand. First, I had to acknowledge the foe that was a little voice inside of me, prone to insults and trash talk. "Oh, good grief, dummy, can't you keep track of anything?" And teach it a little benevolence and empathy. The little voice must learn to talk to me as it would nurture a child. "Good paying attention. You remembered where you put it this time." Understanding and positive mantras. I am paying attention to where I park the car. Lay the bill. Leave my glasses. Go a long way toward making the day brighter. The other candle I light is gratitude. Gratitude for cricket song, starlight, tree leaves rattling in the breeze, and for friends. Gratitude for my family, for the miracle that put me here in the first place, and for the privilege of seeing yet another sunrise. If I forget and get grumpy, I'll schedule gratitude time. First thing in the morning, I list 5 things that delight me, and before I go to bed, I list 5 more. Realizing that worry doesn't do any good, I need to find what will. Good advice abounds about choices that truly do make a difference. I definitely agree with the gurus that eating well and exercising regularly make me feel immeasurably better. Popular advice also tells us to cultivate new talents or passions. This makes life more exciting while it creates new synapses in the brain. A big necessity for me is attending, being present. If I think about what I'm doing, I don't lose the book or the keys or the car. If my mind is off on a different track somewhere, I have to call lost and found. But attention goes well beyond avoiding those frustrations and inconveniences. It's what brings life real enrichment. If I get out of myself, the shoulder aches or forgetfulness or distress at the day's news, and really tune in, attend, I see the color in the quail feathers, hear the whispers of small creatures moving through the grass, feel the softness of the kitten's paw. I am filled with wonder and with joy. The third ingredient in my plan is realism. I want to acknowledge and accept my current capabilities and limitations. That doesn't allow either the Pollyanna, age is just a number, I can do anything I set my mind to, or the pessimistic, I'm too old to do anything perhaps, but sit around and feel sorry for myself. Personally, I want to be as active and intellectually engaged as I possibly can be for as long as I can. I acknowledge that I am neither as fast nor as agile in any endeavor physically or mentally, as I once was, but that's okay. When my back aches, energy flags, or thermoregulator is on the blink, that doesn't mean I have to give up gardening. It only requires a change of activity, a purposeful stretch, a goodly pause with my back against the trunk of a tree. If tachycardia attacks me at the bottom of the hill, that doesn't mean I have to give up walking. But it is a reminder to bring my phone along. It's important to me to acknowledge the facts of this time of life. I am enamored of life cycles and fully accept their discrete qualities. I'm delighted that I can do what I can do, but I don't consider it a negative that I can't keep up with the kids or with my younger self. I yam what I yam, as Popeye would say. Recently, I shared with a friend that I had become aware of an inner scold who heaped harsh criticism on my every mistake. My new goal, I said, was to treat my missteps gently, not as negatives. Later in the evening, I said something about being old. My friend put her hand on my arm, looked kindly into my eyes, and corrected, "Older." I just smiled, but her counsel was a clear response to my wanting to be kinder to myself, with the obvious message that old was an insult. In our culture, that is a common and, I believe, unfortunate attitude. I am older, yes, each hour of each day, but my great-grandchildren are older each day, too. I am old, and hallelujah for that. There's only one way to avoid aging. I've had many friends and relatives who didn't get to become old. David and I are celebrating our 62nd wedding anniversary. My parents made it only to their 50th. I'm approaching a decade older than a dear friend was when she died, and a decade and a half older than my little sister was. Maybe it's for their sakes, maybe for my own. But daily I suck in the good air, listen to the birds or chorus frogs or wind in the trees, and feel grateful that I am old and I am here. I formulated my approach to this stage of life by trial and error. Had I been more calculating in that past middle-aged but still hanging on stage, I could have considered the coming chapter as one might a business, but in this case, the business of living. New entrepreneurs are counseled to formulate a strategic plan, listing ways to overcome challenges to their business goals. Why shouldn't we approach living with comparable intention? Analyze the current situation, where you want to be and how you want to get there. Picture that life with its relationships, attitudes, and activities. That becomes the vision of the new chapter. What might get in the way of the vision? In my case, relationships are prime. Relationships with family, friends, and the natural world. What gets in my way is turning inward and focusing on personal inadequacies or generalizing on the state of the world, which can bring despair. I've been working on those things for a couple of decades. I've discovered it's not all about me, nor is it up to me to solve the world's problems. Still, I'm committed to directing my choices and action towards social and environmental health nationally and beyond. That is my mission. Life feels better with a goal, a raison d'etre. I'll do the best I can, then tune back in to the birds and plants, animals, and people I'm fortunate to share this world with. Meanwhile, I consider it a privilege to be experiencing this stage of life. Do we gaze into the branches of an old-growth tree and feel sorry it's not a sapling? To everything there is a season. I intend to make the most of this one. I never did think I'd get out of here alive, but now I am alive. I am old, and I celebrate my great good fortune. Thank you.
Our next reader is me, Jen Chambers. In the Gloaming by Jennifer Chambers. I dreamed of the forest again last night. It was dark and wet, and the mist-coated branches of the Douglas fir and ponderosa pine slapped my face as I tore through the woods, panting. The darkness had been so total in the dream, and the fear had been so real, it took my breath away and woke me from a deep sleep. This evening, as I was walking away from the farm, back to my car at the end of the driveway, back to my little cottage in another part of the woods, it was not quite dark yet. Looking after the farm was always a pleasure, and I loved to hear the soft, muffled sighs of the cows and the calves. My thoughts were on harvest time, the haying that my family had done, the calves sold, those kept for next year, what varieties of trees we'd cut in a few months' time to make wreaths. I felt a presence behind me on the edge of the grass, as the gravel of the drive crushed under my deliberate feet. Not wanting to show fear, my steps continued, measured, steady. A breath, or was it wind? No, it was warm, caressed my neck, and I bolted. My path veered off the long central driveway into the brush in my panic. I went as fast as I could, which admittedly wasn't very fast, but terror waited behind me. I could feel it, and I did my best to make it down the driveway. Blackberry vines tore at my ankles and my sleeves. They were grabbing, holding me in the darkness, reaching out to bring me back, and suddenly my ankle turned, went into an invisible hole, and I almost went down. The berries turned savior then. My pale wrist had become tangled in the vine. As I fell, and long old thorns pierced my skin to raise dark droplets. But the wound gave me pause enough to right my leg from the small depression, disentangle my hand, and resume my stuttered gallop away, away, away as fast as my burning legs would take me. Still, it followed. I made it, gasping, to the clearing before the small creek, in the hollow that made a clearing as the water widened to a pond. My harsh breath was loud in the gray twilight. All I had to do was make it to the sturdy bridge that my father had made and cross it, for it could not follow, I hoped. How could it have followed me here? Here, my childhood home, my family's sanctuary. The darkness closed in, and I crossed the bridge, so that by the time I crossed, it was full, black, inky. As my breathing calmed slightly, I patted my pockets for the bags hidden in the depths of my patchwork woolen coat. Numb fingers scrabbled for the drawcord, but I finally felt the bag of salt, the biggest velvet pouch in my retinue of herbs and useful things. Immediately, I withdrew the bag. I opened it and laid down a barrier of salt at the edge of the bridge where it met the shore. A small spin let me lay the salt around me in a circle, and I raised my eyes to square my shoulders. Protect this place. Protect me, mother and father, for I come with only goodwill, and I will not harm this place. Turning, I faced the force that had chased me. It was in the shape of a wolf, easily 5 feet at the shoulder. The creature was almost as tall as my 5 feet 9 inches. It pawed the ground at the water's edge, then turned away. It glanced back to give me one long, menacing look for the duration of 5 long breaths. To my frightened, fluttering, pounding heart, it was more than menacing, but a promise of more, or a warning, and my dream slammed panic back into my heart like a thud. It paced almost silently into the forest, away from the bridge, and away from the driveway, turning toward the main road that lay beyond the pond. I watched until it was swallowed by the darkness. At last, and it felt like a half hour had passed, I dared reach for my phone. Of course, there was no service here, not that it would have really been any good anyway. I sent out a silent thank you to the universe that my family was not at the farm, but in Australia, turned on the flashlight for my phone, and picked my way in the opposite direction, toward my old Toyota Previa. It was hard not to run full tilt. Running was at best alert for me anyway. Being a disabled witch was ostracizing at the best of times, and the fact that no matter what herbs I tried or ceremonies I performed, I stubbornly stayed disabled. It made me even more different than the other people of the craft, who could simply make themselves better. I slogged through the last bit of the wet path to the car and tried not to resent those others. My van, the cookie van, was a haven. It always cheered me up. Who could be angry or scared with cookies around? I turned the key, praying the latest repairs had held, and it would start. On a wish and a prayer, as my aunt would say, it did. I drove my sputtering way the few miles to my home, behind my business, the cookie cottage. I needed to think about bringing some other practitioners in on those dreams, and protect myself from the reality that the dreams seemed to have intruded upon. I hope you've had fun with this little selection from Groundwaters Publishing's annual anthology. We have a great time with all of these authors, and we've worked with many of them for several years, so we're always proud to present their work. If you want any more information, please visit www.groundwaterspublishing.com, or if you'd like to contact me, you can always go to my website, www.youareresilient.net. if you'd like to contact me, or if you have a story that you'd like to share of your resiliency.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much.